On October 25th, there's a solar eclipse in intense Scorpio, and it's conjunct Venus, the planet of love and money. Venus is also about determining what you want in your life and what you don't want. How are you going to do that? That's what we're going to talk about. Hi everyone, I'm Donna Stellhorn, your practical astrologer, here to talk to you today about the solar eclipse. It is on October 25th. It's at 2 degrees of Scorpio. We're going to do a short overview and then we're going to go sign by sign. So let's start by first talking about Scorpio and that energy. Scorpio is fixed water. So the fixed part of that fixed water is a modality or a quality. There are 3 qualities: cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And the energy of the fixed quality is about a desire for stability. It is a desire to get things finished and taken care of and put away so that there can be some rest. So it's a very practical energy, but it's much more about stillness and finding a place where a person can be still, where everything is together, where you don't have to do a lot of stuff, you don't have to jump from thing to thing. It is about looking for stability. And so when we combine these two energies for Scorpio, we get fixed water. So if we were to have a picture of what fixed water is, you could think of it as looking out on a glassy lake. So the lake represents this water, but it's perfectly calm. It is reflective. It's like nothing is going on. It's just this, there's not a ripple. But underneath, there is this energy. And that energy is like the Loch Ness Monster, ready to rise up and take your boat down all the way to the bottom. So, but on the surface, everything seems calm. Underneath, there's a lot going on. Now, eclipses are quite practical. And so that means that something very recognizable can change in your life. And that's based on the position of the eclipse in your chart. And if the eclipse is actually hitting your chart, we'll go through that in a moment. But eclipses in general bring change. And so even if your own life is not changing, someone around you's life could change, and that energy could then affect your life. So, but the type of changes that we see with eclipses are changes of job, changes of relationship, changes of residence, and also shifts of attitude where you decide that's it, you're going to quit smoking, or that's it, you are going to move to Bora Bora. So it is both an internal shift, especially with a fixed water sign, but it's also something external can happen. Now, even if you're getting hit by the eclipse, the thing that happens could be something that you've been looking for. So if you've been looking for a new job and you've been thinking about it and you got your resume ready and you're trying to do some interviews and things like that, then when the eclipse comes, you get the new job. So, but if you are saying, I don't want things to change, I want things to stay exactly the way they are, but deep down you know that it's not that great a situation for you, then the universe could come in and disrupt your life. One way you can see how the eclipse is going to affect you is by looking back at past eclipses. So consider what you were doing in October 2014 when there was a solar eclipse at 0 degrees of Scorpio. Also look back at April 2005 when there was a lunar eclipse at 4 degrees of Scorpio. You can also look back at October 1995 at the solar eclipse that was at 0 degrees of Scorpio. Now, this particular solar eclipse is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is about resources and ability to discern whether you have power in a situation or whether you don't, and to shift the power back to where it belongs with you. And we're doing this in a world that is increasingly unfair, increasingly where the deck is stacked against you, where you do not have a lot of say in the things that are happening. And so you have to recognize where you have power in your life and where you can gather the resources that you need for the oncoming storm in the future. This particular eclipse is conjunct Venus, and Venus is about what you want. So it's not surprising that the government and the Fed is trying to manipulate our wants and needs by raising interest rates. Their whole reason behind raising interest rates is to squash desire, and desire is ruled by Venus. It is because they believe that the only way they can get a company to lower their price is if nobody wants to buy their stuff. So, of course, this doesn't count all the inelastic things that a person has to buy, such as food or energy. But eclipses are about change, so it is very likely that the Fed will continue to raise rates and to put continued pressure on us to get us to stop buying. So one of the reasons for this solar eclipse in Scorpio is so that you can recognize your own power and the things in your life that you can change. Now, it's interesting because Scorpio energy doesn't really like to change, but eclipses require change. That's why this particular solar eclipse is so disruptive. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to jump in real quick to tell you that if you haven't signed up for my newsletter yet, please consider it. I am adding content every single month, and it's the way to find out where I'm speaking live or if I'm doing a live stream. So sign up today. The link is in the description. So this particular solar eclipse is looking for the cracks in what it is that you're doing in these areas and seeing if it can exploit a crack to break something up so that you then could put it back together in a better way. Or if there are no cracks, then the eclipse can pick you up and take you further down the path that you want to be on. Now, one thing about astrology that I find that a lot of people get confused about is when we look at it from a mundane standpoint, and by mundane, I mean every day, but in astrology, mundane also means the wider picture of it. So that would be the economy or the energy of a country or the energy of the world. When we look at it from that standpoint, things can look very bad because then we're dealing with the overall group consciousness, the crowd mentality that can, in a panic, go one way or another, kind of like a flock of birds getting scared or a herd of horses, getting trapped in a box canyon. So that's the energy that astrologers talk about oftentimes when we're talking about general things that are happening. But that's not necessarily your experience, because when you look at the individual chart, now you have choice. Now you have the ability to be resilient and resourceful and to find a way out of situations. And that's what causes you to grow. That's what causes you to become stronger and happier in general, because you looked at what you needed in your life and you said, okay, I'm going to make this adjustment or that adjustment, and you found a way through. So that's why when we talk about your individual opportunities in these videos, that's why it can sound very optimistic, because you do have opportunities. So one of the things that Scorpio rules is surgery. And when you think of the medical person who's coming in to heal a sick person, how they're doing it is they're slicing open the person and removing the problem or repairing the issue. And that is a very invasive sort of energy. And so that's what the eclipse is about. It's about the universe slicing open your life and removing something that is not working, or causing you to go towards repairing something that has not been working. That's what eclipses are for. Now, what are the results of that? Of course, that you get better. I mean, that's why people have surgery, so they can get better. And instead of over a very long period of time, they now have a very intense focus time to work on something. Now, of course, if you've been making changes all along, then there's no reason for the surgery. There's no reason for the universe to go in and slice open your life. And so that is, if recently you moved, if recently you changed jobs, if recently you sat down with your partner and really worked out some of the issues, then the eclipse comes and goes and you don't feel that energy. So as a practical astrologer, here are the practical things to do around this eclipse and really any eclipse. And that is over the 2 weeks that happen before the eclipse to take a really unflinching look at your situation and say, what does need to change? Well, what have you been sliding on? What's damaged and needs repairs? What needs to just be tossed out because it's not working? And you do this not to judge yourself, not to get depressed about your situation, but to look for creative solutions. And you know me, I'm very much into asking questions. If you ask questions of yourself that spur your creativity, that really help you come up with new answers, the universe will fill your mind with possibilities and opportunities will become available to you. And I believe these opportunities were here all along, but suddenly our dark glasses are off and we can see them. So as I said before, this eclipse energy unfolds over a 6-month period, but it is quite likely that the 2 weeks before and the 2 weeks after are going to be the time where you experience this change. If you are noticing something that needs to change in your life the 2 weeks before, work to change that, and the universe will then open that door and you can just sashay through. So, but if something major does come up in your life, realize that the universe is also providing the resources for you to figure things out and to get help. So it is not a time to be judging yourself and saying, I shouldn't have put myself in this situation, but to forgive yourself. And now that you know better, you do better. So how do you tell if you're being hit by this eclipse? Eclipses can hit any of your planets, your ascendant or your midheaven. But specifically, let's first look at the sun. So because if the sun is being hit by the eclipse, that is a hit to your identity. And that is that, something very personal is happening. And now I give a 5-degree orb on eclipses. And so that means that we would be going from the 27th degree, so to the end of a sign, and then from 0 to 7. And so that would be 27, 28, 29, or 0 through 7 degrees. So if you see your chart and you can see your sun, if you have a sun at 27, 28, 29, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 degrees, you're being hit by this eclipse. Now, if you don't know the degree of your sun, you might look at it through the days of the month. And so basically you're looking at if you were born between the 18th of the month and the 28th of the month, you are probably being hit by this eclipse. Just to clarify, we are doing tropical Western astrology. And so that means when you're listening to this broadcast, you want to listen to your ascending sign if you know it, because that's going to give you the strongest amount of information that's going to tell you what's going to be happening. But if you don't know your rising sign or ascending sign, then listen to your sun sign, because that is also going to give you very valuable information. Okay, let's go sign by sign. Okay, Aries, you guys are doing this eclipse conjunct Venus in your house of resources from others, also your intimate relationships, as well as where you have power, where you feel that you have control over your life. And so this is where the universe is going to show you where you have any cracks in the foundation and you need to shore things up. So starting with resources, that might mean that people that you think you can count on, maybe you can't, and maybe you need to widen that circle. Or someone that you have been counting on maybe is not as trustworthy. And this could be some professional, maybe they have conflicting interests, maybe your broker is told by their company that they have to prioritize company profits over yours and things like that. So you may be looking at intimate relationships too, and that is really, really close friends or the person that you're having a physical relationship with, and see where you stand in that relationship. It may be that you need to talk some things out. It may be that you're about to move forward on an intimate relationship, but maybe you're moving forward too quickly before you have really figured out whether this person is worthy of your, trust and your intimate connection. So This is also about looking at how you're protecting yourself in general. So that would be, looking at your insurance, looking at end of life planning, maybe looking at helping your parents with that or talking to your kids about your own end of life planning. I know that's a hard subject, but this is Scorpio, and Scorpio is able to look unflinchingly at the darker sides of existence. And so this is a time to be thinking about that. Also investments. We'll talk more about your money in a second. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, the sun is making an out of sign trine to Mars. So there is some love possibilities here, but it's not as obvious. That means this person may not be your type, or maybe you're not their type, but as you get to know each other, then you're finding you have more of a connection than you knew. So this is something where you do want to pursue someone that, you're kind of interested in, but again, they're not typically what you expect or what other people, the kind of person other people expect you to be with. But consider it anyway, because you have some possibilities here. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, there is so much going on in this area of intimacy, but Mars is not making an aspect with Venus. And so even if you want to discuss this, it doesn't seem like you are coming together to have this conversation. And so you may have to wait until the other person comes to you and says they're ready to talk. So, or it is maybe that some conversation needs to happen, but you haven't yet found the words for it. So when there's no aspect, it's challenging to come together to work on something because most of the time our attention is just elsewhere. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Venus that is part of this solar eclipse. That means that something very materially is changing with your money. That may be that you are finding a new source of revenue, and it might be a trickle at first, but you see that it could be a flood at some point, and so that it could completely change your life. But it also could be that some source of income is being interrupted, and so that means that you need to become resourceful and look around to find something else. So it is quite possible that what this disruption is, that you've been expecting it. Maybe you've already given notice and you know that your job is ending, or that the company is going through real hardships. So this is a time to, again, as we said in the beginning, to not be so focused on judging yourself, but more look and say, all right, I'm going to be resourceful here. There's so many opportunities that are out there right now. And that is that a lot of times we're not an exact fit, but you can by, altering your resume, talking to people, finding that third door in, that unconventional way to get to something. So this is very much so huge money opportunities for you that you're going to feel in 6 months from now. But right now it can feel really stressful. And so be kind to yourself, but also ask yourself, all right, what do I need next? And how can I turn this situation to my benefit? Now, when it comes to traditional investments and money from your business, Venus is making an out of sign square to that Pluto. That is that there is a big opportunity, but it means it requires you to take action. And it could be pretty far outside your comfort zone. And so if you find that you know what action you need to take and you've been procrastinating, then you have to almost force yourself to do it. And that might be to call the customers, or to sit down with your broker, or to even open your brokerage statements to say, all right, is this the places my money should be? Is this the best way for me to make passive income or to make money from the business? Maybe you have to look at something your business is doing and make a big change in it. So you do show phenomenal opportunities, because the square is you take an action and stuff happens, but it is an out of sign square, so it may not be so obvious. And that means you have to sit down and kind of puzzle it through, and maybe ask trusted friends, because Scorpio, you're finding people that you can really trust who are going to tell you the truth and say, tell me the unvarnished truth, so that you can deal with things. So I think you have extraordinary opportunities, but I do think you're going to go through a period where the universe is kind of making an incision and pulling something out that is not helpful to you. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, so that's like your paycheck, you have an interesting situation going on because Venus is not making an aspect with Uranus, but Uranus is in a money house and Venus is in a money house. And so there is definitely money stuff going on. It's just you're having trouble getting that money into your bank account. And that means that maybe the boss is saying, no, you can't have a raise right now. There's a freeze on raises, and even the boss might be saying, I think you deserve a raise, but there's a freeze, and so I can't do it. Or you're getting a raise, but it's tiny, it's microscopic, and so it's not keeping up with inflation. And so there are maybe some decisions that you need to make, but mostly what we see is you being told, all right, you just have to wait. And so you may want to work on other things like passive income sources so that you don't get antsy while you're waiting for, your boss to notice how good a job you're doing. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I always divide these into two categories, there are the super exotic type of investments that are pretty much gambling, or there is the investment that you make in your time and energy to create something and then put it out into the world. So if we were looking to say, should you invest in something that is more like gambling, of course, following all the gambling rules, don't invest more than you can afford to lose, and recognize that some investments have a much deeper downside than they even have an upside. So just being aware of that. The sun is making a conjunction to Venus in a money house. So this is a time where I do see you feeling very compelled to do something. Now, that said, again, if you're following the rules, you could take a risk at this time. What you may be looking at, though, is launching something. Maybe you've been working on a product or a service or a website or something. Maybe you've been launching a business. And so you might be considering launching it at this time. And this could be a great time to do that, except don't do it exactly on the day of the eclipse. Because on the day of the eclipse, there's no energy, because the energy is literally blocked. Like the moon is in front of the sun, and the moon is so big that we can't see the sun. So that's a huge block. And so on that day, don't launch the business. But this can be a time where you are launching your product or service or your business, and to great fanfare, to real success, because you have good energy here. Okay, Taurus, you guys are doing this solar eclipse along with Venus in your house of relationships, and Venus is your sign ruler. And so this is a very intense eclipse time for you. Now, that said, you've been doing an intense eclipse time for the last year, because the eclipses have been in Taurus and Scorpio. And so you've already been through some changes. So this time, it looks like more the changes are happening to people in your life, and that is rippling and affecting your life. Or maybe you're needing to make some adjustments to the changes that they're making. It also can be, though, that you're needing to look at some of the relationships you have and see if these are going in the direction that you want. Are you getting closer? Is the relationship growing? Are you feeling that the relationship connection is stronger? Or are you feeling like you're just kind of spinning your wheels? So because the Scorpio energy here wants a level of intimacy where there's trust, where there is something that you're gaining from being together, because otherwise, why bother? So the Venus here is asking you to discern, who are the true friends and who should just be put in that category of acquaintances and nice to know them. There's also some things here about work-life balance. And, and I got to say, from my own perspective here, I do no work-life balance whatsoever. I really believe that when you find something you love to do, you can just do it all the time. And so I'm not one to talk here. But if you feel that you don't have work-life balance and it's something that's important to you, this is something where you may be discussing this with other people in your life to find a way to achieve that. And that can be what this eclipse is doing, where you're determining what needs to be removed from your life, what activities or even connections that are not giving you something that's benefiting your life, so that you can have more work-life balance. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, even though Venus is not making an aspect to Mercury, you have the eclipse in your house of relationships. So this is a little bit less about meeting someone new, but maybe more looking at who you are meeting and who you're continually attracted to, and ask yourself, why are you attracted to somebody maybe who's not available? Or why are you attracted to someone who seems to be running the other direction? And so to make some adjustments in your own self to say, oh, you know what? I attract people who are not available because I'm not ready for a relationship. That then gives you some insight and you can make a shift there. So this is more this time about working on the internal you, and that way you open up the door to relationships. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, it's an entirely different story because you have the eclipse there, you have Venus there, and Venus is making an out of sign square to Pluto, which is that it is something small that is tripping you guys up. There is something that you can deal with that is going to make this relationship so much better. And it's just about sitting down and mentioning this thing, something that maybe, maybe they don't know that, you don't like it when they buy extra ice cream because you get too tempted, or that they are spending without telling you, or something like this. It's maybe a small thing and that you keep saying, oh, I'll just deal with it. But if you actually point it out to them, you could really strengthen this relationship. Now, that's if the relationship has some problems. It is possible with this chart here that it's the two of you weathering things out in the world, that you're coming together as, like captain and co-captain to steer the family ship, that you're doing amazing together because there is this oncoming storm, because you are trusting each other. So this could be a time where you really look at each other and say, my goodness, thank goodness you're here, because, together we're stronger. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from Mercury, which is in your house of work and routines, and it's making a fantastic trine to Mars in your house of money. And that is when you put things into your schedule, when you do that, you start getting them done, because this is your area of work and routines. That means if it's on your list, you get it done and it makes you money. So this is a complete circuit where the loop gets closed, where things get finished. Over the next 2 weeks, you can make more progress than you've made in months. So you want to make sure that the things you want to get done are in your schedule. I see you ignoring interruptions. You're actually irritated by the interruptions of anything, and because you are so focused on your goals. So a fantastic energy that you're doing. You just put it in your schedule and it will get done. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, you're making about the same as usual. Now, that I know that sounds like it flies in the face of what I just said, but I just think you're getting paid for all of this effort outside the 2-week period, because Mercury is not making an aspect with Jupiter. So the money's there, it's coming, but it hasn't arrived yet. And that's okay. It is perfectly okay to send out that bill and say, hey, pay me in 30 days. And then the money does flow in. So I see you making more money, but it is not within this 2-week period. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, so that's your paycheck, Mercury is making an inconjunct to Neptune. And that means that if you do ask for a raise, or if your boss brings up a raise, there are some serious strings attached. There is some sort of adjustment that you have to make, maybe moving to another department, maybe reporting to somebody else, maybe doing a task you don't want to do. So you have to be a little bit careful about asking for a raise at this time, because it's going to come with some sort of yuck. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I divide these into 2 categories, and one of those is the kind of cowboy, just jumping off the cliff sort of risky investment that's really gambling. Or there's also a type of risky investment where you have to do a lot of upfront work, like you have to edit a full video, and then if the video might do well or the video might not do well. So your inclination right now is to do things, to jump off of cliffs, to find things to do. So if that is what you're feeling, and I'm saying that because that Mercury is making a trine to Mars, so you do want to go to other people and ask for advice. Find knowledgeable people about this investment and see what they're saying. And then, of course, don't invest more than you're willing to lose. Now, it also can be that you are very excited about launching something. And this is a good time for you to launch. Now, I say that this is an eclipse, and so don't launch on the day of the eclipse. There is no energy on the day of the eclipse. And we know that because the energy is blocked. So if we think of the sun as being energy, here comes the moon, and the moon is, from our vantage point, so big, it blots out the sun. That means the energy is blocked. So don't launch on the day of the eclipse. But over this 2-week period after the eclipse, yeah, you have some good energy for launching. Okay, Gemini, you guys are doing this solar eclipse along with Venus in your house of daily routines, health, and well-being. And so when we look at first health and well-being, there is probably some sort of conflict going on between what you want to do and what you feel you should do. And so that could be something that you are shifting the energy so that the thing you should do is the thing you want to do. And so that's a really good use of this energy. Eclipses can bring such big change that this is the time to do a complete 180 of your diet, to really say, I'm going to exercise every day, or I'm going to do this or that for health, and make such a radical change in your life because the eclipse energy supports that. Now, when it comes to work, it may be that you are looking at what you can eliminate in your schedule that is a distraction or is not really leading you towards your goal. Now, this also does rule both coworkers and employees, and so that means that you might be looking at somebody that you work with and saying, this is just not working out, and seeing how you can distance yourself from that person, or you may be letting an employee go. And I know that's very difficult to do. So, but the eclipse says that some big change has to happen. And until that change happens, that you're blocked, that you are not receiving the energy that you want. So that's what this eclipse is. When it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, even though Venus is not making an aspect with Mercury, Mercury is in that house, the 5th house of romance. And so it's possible that you are in communication with someone, but you're not quite meeting yet. And that's actually a good thing. Eclipse energy is so challenging and so intense. You may want to wait a couple weeks before you actually sit down with a new person, because if you meet the person and fall head over heels, you could get so caught up and so swept away by the energy that you don't notice where there are some serious incompatibilities. So, but I do see you communicating a lot with new love, but I'm not sure that it's time to actually sit down with that person. When it comes to existing love relationships, Mercury is not making an aspect with Jupiter, and there's nothing in the house. And so this is probably a time where you're working more on your work and health. And that means that your relationship partner can support you, but they will only support you in the level they have been before. You can't really change that relationship right now. And if they are going through a bad eclipse, you might have to be supportive of them because they're going through so much. And so I do see that it's almost like you're moving together, but you're not coming together. And so you're just moving forward kind of at the same pace, like side by side, but you're not really connecting on the deeper level. So your relationship, it's about the same as usual. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from the moon in your 6th house. It's part of the eclipse. It's conjunct Venus. So there are so many opportunities for you, but they require you to put it into your routine. That is that it is the incremental things that you do that build your business or build up the skill set for the great job. That build up your investments. It is, saving the 50 cents rather than having this gigantic win. And I know the gigantic win is nice, but this is very much about incremental improvements. Sorry, the cat's sneezing. He has allergies. So this also suggests that you remove something from your daily routines to improve your life. And so what is the extra spending that you're doing, or what is the thing that's pulling you away from focusing on what you want to achieve? Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, the moon's not making an aspect with Saturn. So you're making about the same as usual. And that is, I think, because even if you're changing your routines, even if you start this incremental process, you're not really seeing the results in 2 weeks. You're seeing the results over a longer period of time. So that is that, slow and steady wins the race, and that right now is where you're at. And the plus about being a Gemini with this is you are more able to multitask than most signs out there. And so that is, you can make these incremental improvements while doing the rest of the things that you're doing. Now, when it comes to money from your job, that would be like a paycheck, it's an entirely different story because the moon is making an out of sign trine to Mars. And Jupiter is still in that house. So you have this kind of brief opportunity to check in with your boss and say, look, this is what I've been doing and I need a raise. Or if you are negotiating for a new job, you have an opportunity to gain more money or perks. So this is something for you to focus on because Jupiter is going to leave this house briefly, at least for a few months, and that means that you won't have as much luck in this area. So consider taking this sometime during this 2-week period and checking in about a raise. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I really divide these into 2 categories. One is the type of investment that's really leveraged or pretty much just gambling. And the other is where you're gambling on yourself, and that is that you're doing something upfront, on spec, you're not getting paid, and then you're presenting it with the idea of getting paid. And so of the first one, actually, I'm seeing you as pulling back away from risky investments. And so this might be that you are not as susceptible to other people's pitches at this time, or you're just feeling more conservative. When it comes, though, to launching a big project, this is also not quite the time to do it because there's no aspect going on right now between Mercury and Venus. And because of that, this is still a time to be putting the finishing touches on things or to go through testing about it. Maybe there is a launch window outside this 2-week period, or if you really need to launch this, do a soft launch and test this with friends and family so you can find the bugs and get those things fixed. Okay, Cancer, you guys are doing this solar eclipse with Venus in your house of fun, creativity. This is also about having adventures or taking risks, and it is about your kids. But let's first go back to fun, and that is the question of, are you having any fun? I mean, is your life just about taking care of the kids, taking care of the family, and being very focused on other people? And maybe you haven't had fun in so long, you're not even sure what that is. It's also possible that you're doing things for leisure that aren't really bringing you the creative outlet or that peace of mind. So, sometimes if we're just scrolling and just reading headlines or things like that, then we're not really relaxing. It's a distraction, but this is about transforming or changing on a very deep level what it is you're doing for leisure. Now, it is also possible, because you are taking the eclipse hit here, that one of your kids has a major change going on in their life, and they are either asking you for some help, or you know that you need to stay on the sidelines while they work this problem out. And so there may be that this is going to be a little bit external for you, and that you have to watch and see, as like a concerned parent still, to see how your child does with whatever challenge it is, but also knowing that you are there just in case. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, this eclipse is in that house, and that means that you could meet somebody who is really quite different and really almost life-changing. And so, but starting sometime, let me get my sentence order correct. Sometimes beginning a relationship during an eclipse, it can be a problem because it can be so intense that you miss some of the more obvious signs that there's going to be trouble later down the road. So this, you're also doing an out of sign square between the moon and Pluto. So again, we have that sort of energy of this is a little bit either unfamiliar territory, so somehow this person's not normally your type, or this comes up quite suddenly and maybe feels a little bit overwhelming. And so it's really important that if you're meeting somebody at this time to either take it step by step or check in with a friend. And if your friend says, oh no, don't go out with this person, then really heed that, even if your heart is really pounding for this person. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, the focus seems to be elsewhere. So the two of you are just continuing your relationship as it was before. I'm not seeing a lot of changes going on in that relationship. It's not getting worse. It's not getting better. Because there is so much focus on children, and sometimes that includes our pets. If you have, like long ago, of course, pets were more considered sixth house, not fifth house, and fifth house is where the focus is for you. But as we keep our pets inside, as we dress them up in little outfits, as we have birthday parties for them, they really do become children, and we have to look at a fifth house energy for them. But if you're, like if it's the cat out in the barn, and you never see this cat, that's definitely a sixth house energy. And I don't know how I got on this topic. Oh, right, relationships. So, and now I still don't know why the pets fit. Oh, yes, because, geez, I may have to cut all this out. It is that your relationship is going along as usual, mostly because you are very focused on maybe your children, your pets, or some other aspect of your life. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that sun, which is part of the eclipse, and it's conjunct Venus. So there is this desire for you to make the investment or to possibly put out money. It is also possible that some sort of investment that you've been working on or business opportunity now can pay off. And so the money and you are sitting there together because Venus, the planet of money, is sitting there right on your ruler of money. So this is an extraordinary time for you, but make sure that you're looking for what you can receive versus what you can put out in the way of investments or investing in the company. So that at least there's a balance, but even better that you're receiving more than you're putting out. Now, when it comes to traditional investments and money from your business, you're making about the same as usual. And that is that if this extra money is coming in, it may be coming in outside this 2-week period. This is also, and the reason is because the sun is not making an aspect to Uranus, which means that the money that is out there in the world is not quite reaching your account yet. So I do see there's opportunities for you to really look at your portfolio, see what adjustments that you want to make. So that might mean that you are diversifying more, or maybe just deciding that now's the time to get some investments that you've been waiting to get. And so that could be why we were seeing that more money is outgoing. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, which is like a paycheck, the story is the exact opposite. You have an extraordinary time because the sun is conjunct Venus. And that means that you have more of a chance of getting a raise, a promotion that is along with a raise, or some other really great benefit. And so you do want to talk to your boss, or proceed on negotiations with the new company, because this is very, very good energy for you. This is the time to ask. Now, when it comes to risky investments, I really divide this into 2 categories. And one of those is where you are doing a leveraged investment or a very time-sensitive investment, and that means it's almost like gambling. The other type is where you put a lot of effort in on spec, where you are doing your reel, or you're doing your first novel, or you're doing a screenplay treatment, something where you have to do a lot of upfront work and it's unpaid for hopefully a big payout down the road. Now, of course, with the eclipse there, it's asking you to change your thinking about this. That is, if you're already involved in something like this, then you want to do something very different. It is also maybe the point where you're saying, you've been thinking about, doing your album or something, but you're procrastinating, and it says now is the time. When we look at the aspects, the sun is making an out of sign, a square to Pluto, and that Pluto is in your house of relationships, connections, mentors. So this is a time to look for some help in this area, where maybe you could find somebody who has the experience, who has, an in, and they are willing to help you. So this is the time to ask. But overall, the energy is quite intense. I want to say good, but it's so intense that I do want you to, take cautious steps as you move forward on whatever project you're doing that falls in this category. But ultimately, this could be the seeds that you plant that are the real win that you have within the eclipse period, which is about 6 months. Okay, Leo, you guys are doing this eclipse in your house of home and family. Of course, the most obvious thing for an eclipse in this area means that you might be moving either this month or within a 6-month period. And so if there are some cracks in that foundation, maybe literally, this is where you want to pay your attention to what's going on about your home. Maybe you're doing a major declutter, maybe you're doing major renovations. It's possible somebody's moving into the house or somebody is moving out of the house. And so we're seeing the disruption there. This is also, though, family, and so it's possible that you are helping a family member who is going through something major. And so this can be family you live with or extended family. So, or it can just be the people who live in the house with you. They may not be related to you. So it's possible that what's going on is a little bit more periphery for you if you're not getting an exact hit to this from this eclipse. And that is some family member is needing your help. But it's also possible that whatever's going on with them ripples into your life. And so, like your partner gets a job across the country and now you all have to move. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, the sun is making an inconjunct to Jupiter. And so it says that love is out there for you, but you have to make some sort of adjustments. Now, one of the factors, which is most obvious, is that the moon, the sun, and Venus, 3 planets that we would really associate with love relationships, are all buried in that 4th house. And so it's that nobody can find you. You're not seen. That means your profile might not be up, or perhaps, you've got some of it up, but you don't have the pictures up, or you are maybe saying no to your friends fixing you up. So that's where you might want to make that adjustment. So inconjuncts are not the easiest. It also could mean that the people you're meeting don't seem to be a fit, and that some sort of adjustment would have to be made, either in, what you are looking for, to say, all right, I hadn't considered dating a person who, is an engineer or lives in a foreign country or something like that, but you make the adjustment. Or you could just wait until you get better aspects, which you will. When it comes to existing love relationships, the sun's not making an aspect with Uranus, but the sun is down there in that 4th house of home and family. So if you live with this person in your established relationship, then there's stuff going on together where you're more working on externals rather than the relationship itself. And so otherwise, the relationship's just moving along. It's not getting weaker, it's not getting stronger. It's because you're mostly focused on other things. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Mercury, which is making a great trine to Mars, which is in a money house. And so there is some real opportunities. Now, sometimes what happens with a trine is it's so easy that we just ignore it. And so this trine is actually going up into your house of money derived from career. So this is more about making additional money through your current job. Now, that may not just be a pay raise. We'll get to that one in a second, but this is more about how else can you take the skills that you have in your current job and maybe apply them to some side jobs, or maybe take yourself out of a job situation and go back in as a consultant. So these are just a couple of the ideas, but it is a trine. And so, someone could mention something to you, maybe a coworker or somebody like that, and then you say, okay, I'm going to file that idea away because it's pretty good. So that's what to be paying attention to this time. Now, when it comes to money from your business or from investments, Mercury is making an inconjunct to Neptune, and Neptune is in a money house. And so the good that the Neptune's in a money house, bad that it's an inconjunct, because the inconjunct says you have to make some sort of adjustments or changes to get the profits. And so you might be looking at how you can adjust your marketing or your pay structure, or how many employees you have, or who you do your investing with, or what you're investing in. But adjustments are the way. Now, usually with an inconjunct, very, very different than a square. A square is, you're ready to do it. You must do it. You feel compelled. But with an inconjunct, you can kind of feel like, what a pain this is. I don't really want to do it. So be aware that when you make the adjustments, benefits happen, but you may not feel like you want to. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, that paycheck, as we were saying before, you have some really good energy, and that includes asking for a raise because you're doing that trine to the Mars. And so all of the things that we mentioned before about, maybe doing a side business or working as a consultant for your company, you could just ask them for a raise or ask for more hours. You have really good energy for this right now. You're going to actually do better getting actual cash, though, than the perks, because the road to the perks is that inconjunct to Neptune. And so that is, go for the more money per hour versus a higher commission percent or more time off. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I really divide these into two categories, one of those is the leveraged or time-sensitive, highly exotic investment that feels like gambling. The other one is where you are working on a project for a very long time, something creative where you're not getting paid, but you hope to be paid in the future. And so right now, Mercury is not making an aspect to Jupiter. So, Mercury is in your house of ideas. And so there can be lots of different ideas that are coming up. Jupiter is just going into your house of education. And so maybe the information that you're looking for, you haven't quite fixated on what it is you need to know, what question you need answered, or you haven't quite found the right teacher yet. So I think that right now, you're not showing a lot of profit in this area. You're showing that you are formulating your questions and finding the person with the answer. Okay, Virgo, you guys are doing this eclipse in your house of communication, thinking process, neighbors, siblings, and your vehicle. So, but probably the thing that we see the most with an eclipse in this area is to change how you are speaking to yourself. That is, are you mostly thinking negative thoughts, or are you thinking, 99% of the same thoughts you thought yesterday? And so this is where you're looking for a big change of thinking, of this is what can bring like an epiphany where suddenly you see things very, very differently. And that can be extremely good, and it can ripple through your whole life. And so the energy here is first look at your thinking process, maybe taking up meditation or journaling. This is also, though, about communication through paperwork and contracts. So you may be renegotiating a contract at this time, and you want to look very carefully at any contracts that you are signing now because you're doing the eclipse in this area. And it would not be wise to sign the contract on the exact day of the eclipse. That would be October 25th. That is a day where there's actually no energy. That's a day where the moon, which represents our emotions, is so big, it blots out the sun. And so it blots out the light, the ability for you to see what's really going on. So don't sign on the day of the eclipse, but you may want to review contracts. You might want to reach out to a sibling and see if you can mend that relationship, or with a neighbor. And if you're negotiating a vehicle, you do want to be careful, again, not to do it exactly on the eclipse. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, Mercury's making a lovely trine to Saturn. And so that means that there is an opportunity to meet someone. And I think it's interesting when we get something that is around a thinking process and a shift in thinking process, and then suddenly love appears, because that's often what happens. You know, oftentimes when somebody tells me, oh, I'm having real trouble finding a relationship, I find more that it's them themselves that are blocking the door versus opening the door and not finding someone. So I think you're doing very good energy here for communicating with the universe and with friends and family that you're looking for someone, and someone could appear. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, Mercury's making an inconjunct to Neptune. And so this is a shift of communication. You need to be looking and talking to each other, well, mostly talking to each other in a different way. Sometimes that just means to stop and look at the things that you repeat, the things you say over and over, and look at those actual words in a new way. How are each of you defining those words? And when you uncover that, that can help deepen the relationship. Because this is an inconjunct, if you or the other person happens to adjust, then things can get better. But if you are refusing to adjust and they are as well, then you get to be at a little stalemate. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Venus, which is exactly conjunct this eclipse. So this says that something is materially changing in your money. Now, eclipses unfold over a 6-month period, so you may know what that is over the next 2 weeks, but it may not come up right away. But it could be that a source of income is changing or being eliminated. It's also possible that you have a new source of income, and that is a substantial change, maybe up or down from what you usually get. And so this is where some of the adjustments are. You can also have some amazing ideas, because this is in your house of thinking process and ideas about how to make money. Or you may have an epiphany about how you save money or how you invest it, and that could make a huge positive change in your life over a 6-month period. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, Venus is not making an aspect with Mars, and Jupiter is just about to leave Aries, which would mean it's leaving that house for you. And so this means that right now you're kind of making the same as usual, and it's harder for you now to try to grab profits. You want to wait just a little bit so that this energy settles down, and then you're going to find more profits. So this, because there's so much in your area of communication, you might be redoing your marketing materials, you might change your message, you might look at your mission statement. Things like that can help you adjust and make more money over time, but it may not be immediate money. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, it's an entirely different story. Your ability to get more money in your paycheck is extremely strong. It does mean you need to ask, because this is in your area of communication. But it is a conjunction between the moon and Venus, and so this is where you ask for the raise and they say, yes, we know you need the raise, and so here you go. So you have a great opportunity to get more money, more hours, some sort of benefit from your job, or to negotiate a higher salary with a new job. Now, when it comes to risky investments, I really divide this into 2 categories. One is the highly exotic, roll of the dice, really gambling type of investment. Those can be quite leveraged or very time sensitive. The other type is where you work on a project, especially a creative project, for a long period of time on spec, where you're not getting paid, but you are then eventually going to present this to the world in some form and then hopefully get a payday. Now, right now, you show that continuing to work on this is the good thing to do because you're not making an aspect between Saturn and Venus. And so therefore, the money that's out in the world is not yet reaching your wallet. And so that means that you just keep working on things. I think with such a strong house of communication, you're probably brainstorming ideas, with the universe and with friends and family. And I think you can come up with some amazing ideas, either to make changes in what you have or for something new. And I think that those will pay off in the future. But right now, that's a thing to focus on over the next 2 weeks. Okay, Libra, you guys are doing this eclipse along with the conjunction to Venus in your house of money. This is also about possessions, a sense of worthiness, and where you feel you have power. Now, if you feel like you don't have power over your money, that you just, it comes in, it goes out, and you just don't have control over it, this is your opportunity to gain some control. But it also could be that you are feeling like that you are powerless in a situation to make more money, and that's where this energy could shift, and you could find a way through to make much more money than you're making now. Now, of course, it's not going to occur in a 2-week period. Eclipse energy unfolds over a 6-month period. So the ideas that you have now and the things that you're going to start implementing, those could manifest in the next few months. Now, with eclipses, because it can bring a big change in finances, it's also possible that you know already what is changing, whether it is a revenue stream that's changing, that you're going to be making more money or less money, or that some revenue stream is actually being interrupted, and that would be being laid off or finding, that you're looking for a new job. But all of this does say that you could parlay this into something that is much better for yourself, but you do need to lean in because this is suggesting here that you have the power, that this is under your control, not that specific revenue stream, but making money in general. So that is that if the job is ending, there's another job for you and it's better. If a revenue stream is ending, there is another revenue stream out there for you. And this is something that you want to actively pursue because you're doing this energy. Now, all of this is, that's all possible. The other side of this is how you're managing your money. And so maybe this eclipse is just about you keeping better track of your spending or looking at it differently, where you might think that it just seems to always be going out and you're very focused on that, and then shifting your focus to what money can you bring in and looking at, side businesses or selling some items or collaborating with someone so that you can be focused more on what is flowing in. This is also the house of possessions. And so it also is possible that you are looking at decluttering. Maybe, the garage is filled with stuff and you can sell off some things. Perhaps this is just where you need to donate things so you have a little bit more breathing room. Or you may be getting items that you need that are going to make you feel more safe and secure. And so this might be that you're building your food storage or your water supply or something like that, so that you know that whatever the oncoming storm brings, that you're going to be okay. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, it's not really where your focus is. So it's interesting because there's no aspect going on right now between Venus and Uranus, and it's so much in the personal houses. All the planets are kind of grouped there that even if somebody is knocking at your door, it may take somebody else in your life to say, hey, did you know this person wants to go out with you? Because you just seem like your attention is elsewhere. And I think that that's okay. Sometimes it's difficult to get involved with someone around the time of the eclipse because the relationship can be so intense. So this is a time to be working on you and to, be introspective that way versus focusing outward. When it comes to existing love relationships, the story is pretty much the same. The two of you are moving along together, not necessarily working on your relationship because there's no aspect between Venus and Mars, but more maybe joining together to work on a project together. Maybe that is for more money or to find additional revenue streams or to deal with all the stuff that you have or to get new stuff if that's what you need. So that's really where the focus is. And, it is also a good idea at this time to let others take care of you where you're not so concerned about taking care of them. So, and that may balance the scales out for you. If you've been extremely giving in a relationship, you may want to step back and see what kind of care you receive from friends and specifically your partner. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money, of course, from that Pluto. We talk about that every month. That's still in your house of real estate and land and doing collaborations with your family. And so that's something always to consider. But you're also pulling money from that Mars, which is at the top of your chart. So this Mars right now in Gemini is going to be there until next March. And so it's going through your house of education. Also, foreign things, a long distance travel. And so there may be something that you are doing that's international or that is involving education companies. Maybe you're teaching, maybe you're writing, maybe you're publishing. So this energy is still quite strong for you about how can you take what it is you know and apply it to making money. And that's where some great money ideas are going to come in. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, you have a very strong chart. Venus is making an out of sign square with Pluto. That out of sign part means it's not so obvious how you're getting the money, or it's an unusual circumstance, like a one-time deal where somebody comes in and makes a very large purchase, but you have the potential to make some big money. It's perhaps maybe that you're doing some sort of product launch or service launch or putting out new marketing material and you're getting a big boost because of that. That boost may not be sustainable. You may find that tapers off, but you then at least have the formula for doing this again in the future. So I'm seeing really good energy for you in this area. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, so that's like a paycheck, the story is the same. You're doing extraordinary energy because the sun is making that out of sign square to Pluto. Now, what this means is that you may have to take a more unconventional route to get more money from your employer, and that is that you don't wait until your annual review. You don't wait for the boss to say something to you, but you take your case to them with everything all prepared, where you say, this is how much money I've generated for the company. This is my track record here. This is how I help this project come to completion. So you bring that. This is also a really great time for you to negotiate for more money with a different company, and that is to get a new job. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I talk about this as dividing it into two very different types of investments. One is the fly by the seat of your pants, highly exotic, probably leveraged or very time sensitive investment where you're really, just gambling. And so, or there is the type where you gamble on yourself by doing a long-term project on spec. You're not getting paid while you're working on it, but then later you want to present this to the world. And that's anything from working on a business over a long time, or more accurately, a business plan to get funding, or, writing your screenplay and then, presenting that for payment. So, and what you're doing is, while Pluto is not making an aspect to Uranus, the co-rulers are. So Mars is making a trine to Saturn. So everything's a little bit once removed, and it is a trine. So sometimes a trine is so easy that you can miss it. But it does, it's still a trine, and a trine is a good thing. You're doing a very strong money time for you, at least to plant the seeds. And so this may be the time that you are launching something that is very important, where you could make a great deal of money over a long period of time. And I will say, launching during this time is okay, but don't launch on the day of the eclipse. I know a lot of people think it's such a special day, so I'll launch it then. But the energy is actually quite blocked on that specific day, because when you think about it, the moon is so big in the sky, it blots out the sun. And so therefore it's blocking the energy for a moment. And that's why it's such a big change in people's lives, is because that this little tiny moon, in astronomical terms, is bigger than the sun for a moment. And so that is, don't launch your new business or project on the eclipse itself. Okay, Scorpio, this really is your eclipse, and that marks a change in your life. And this change unfolds over a 6-month period. Now, it's hitting your first house. That's your house of confidence and how you present yourself into the world, in the world. And this is also about how you relate with others and who you're attracting into your life and who you are accepting into your life. And so the Scorpio energy, which you understand very well, is here now in more intensity, allowing you to edit what is happening in your life. That is, what's benefiting you, what are the things that you're doing that is bringing you something that you want, and what are the things that you need to cut out. And so I think that's very much where the focus is, and that's everything from negative thinking to negative people, to negative news reports. If those things are not benefiting you, to cut them out of your life. I know that's much easier said than done. And so start the editing process very carefully with the things that are easy to control, because even, creating 10% better by removing some negativity would make a huge difference over time. Now, also during this time, you may be drawing a lot of attention to yourself because you are going through changes. And this doesn't usually make Scorpio very happy. And so just recognize that people are noticing you. And so instead of, retreating to the background, see if you can make a connection with that person and see if they're going to be useful or helpful or maybe a new relationship for you for the future. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, Pluto, of course, is making a sextile to Neptune, which is always that opportunity for you. But what's more important here is that you are doing such a strong energy around you. And that is, maybe it's time to rethink how you are looking for new love. And that could be changing the method that you're doing, but maybe changing your attitude about it, and maybe shifting it from something where you feel very defensive to just curiosity about who this person might be. Or releasing somebody from the past so you are then free to go see this new person and connect with them. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, we have a lot of energy here because Venus is making an out-of-sign square to Pluto. And this means that some of the energy, and I'm really thinking contentious energy, could kind of come out of nowhere, where even you who are so perceptive might be a little surprised that the person is upset about something. But because you're doing an aspect, you can work this out. And by working it out, you could materially strengthen this relationship and have it be much better in the future. So this is very much about how the person who might be feeling vulnerable might come, and you might feel a little attacked, but you are very strong. You have that Scorpio energy. So just kind of shift where you're not in the direct line of fire, shift out of that line of fire, observe what they're doing, and then you can start to make some changes in this area. Now, when it comes to your money, you're making a big shift because you're pulling that money from Jupiter, which is moving from your house of work and routines back into your house of creativity, adventure, and risk-taking. And so there is something where maybe you're working on something in tiers where you had the idea and then you were fleshing it out and you were doing the work, and now you need to go back to the drawing board for either the next stage of this or to make some adjustments in the current stage. But there's definitely lots of creative opportunities coming. And it's also possible somebody's coming to you with a more out-of-the-box idea for you to consider. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money for your business, Mercury's not making an aspect with Jupiter, and Mercury's hidden right now. So mostly when it comes to actual profits over the next 2 weeks, you're making just about the same as usual. You might even be making a little bit less because you are very focused on other aspects. And that might be that you are consolidating resources, eliminating products that aren't really working for you. They sell a little bit, but not very much, or the same with services. Or you are getting rid of some investments that just haven't performed over a period of time. And so you're consolidating your resources, and therefore you'll be able to make more money in the future. When it comes to money derived from career, so like a paycheck, because the Mercury is in the 12th house and hidden right now, it does mean that it's very difficult for you to say to the boss, hey, I really deserve a raise, because they haven't seen you. Maybe you've been out of the office, maybe they've been out of the office, or the project that you're working on hasn't actually completed yet. So it's not quite time yet to be asking for the raise. If you're negotiating for a salary increase, though, with a new job, it's a very different story. You have a lot of power right now to negotiate for more money if you are actually looking for a job. So you do want to focus on that area. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I divide this really into two categories. One is the highly leveraged, time-sensitive, very exotic investment that is really just rolling the dice. It's really gambling. And so those types of investments you have to be quite careful with, just in general. The other type that falls in this category of risky investments is where you do a lot of upfront work for no money, and then you present a larger product and in hopes of getting paid. Now, what's going on is Jupiter is moving back into Pisces. It's not quite there yet. So over this 2-week period, you're still just working on things as you were before. You may have a lot of new ideas because Jupiter's at 0 degrees. That brings new ideas. But it's not quite there yet to get the profits, but it's very, very soon. So you're getting close. So if you're working on something, move it towards that finishing point, because that's coming soon. Okay, Sagittarius, you guys are doing this eclipse with Venus in your house of intuition. It is also about the unconscious, your shadow side. It is where you kind of run to hide at times when the world is just too much. And so that's why we associate this house, the 12th house, with addictions and escapes. And so this is where you're doing this transformative energy, where you're saying, I'm not going to do that anymore. The Scorpio energy really allows you to edit and take out some things that are not working in your life. This also may be some intense introspection. You may receive some sort of epiphany, a spiritual message that really shifts how you do everything, that you suddenly see the world in a new way. And so that is very positive. This could just be time too where you're getting more rest. And when you come out of this 2-week period, you're feeling so much stronger because you've been processing things unconsciously. So I think this is a very good time for you. This is when you can really do journaling and meditation very, very effectively. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, Mars is making a square to Jupiter. It is out of sign, but Jupiter is in a relationship house and Mars is in a relationship house. So this is about thinking outside the box, going out with someone that you wouldn't normally consider, maybe they don't meet your height standards, or, maybe they have a different faith than you do, or some other big difference. But this is a time to be trying out somebody new and maybe going on a blind date or two, or looking at getting a matchmaker, or doing something very different, because you can get some amazing results. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, Mercury's not making an aspect with Jupiter, and you are so much in this withdrawn sort of energy where you're being introspective, where you are maybe looking within. I'm thinking that while your partner's out there still supporting you and you're doing things, you don't seem to be actively working on your relationship right now. And so I think things are just smoothly going on as usual, as you are, focusing on yourself, which you're supposed to be doing right now, that they can be there and give you the support that you need. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Saturn, which is just past that no partile square from Uranus that we've been talking about for the last few videos. Now, that means that whatever it is that you were dismantling, whatever you were taking apart to rebuild, now you have all the pieces. And so now it's time to rebuild this. And so that could be something where you had a business idea and now you see that with the way society's going, that business idea is not going to work, but you have maybe the inventory and you have the business plan. And this is a time to start tweaking that to make it fit your next business. Or maybe this is something where you're taking your existing skills and repackaging them in a new way. So, or maybe even for a new industry. And so you're putting something together now. You are rebuilding. This is the last of that energy of that Uranus-Saturn square. And so now you're going to enter this long time period of building. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, you're making about the same as usual. Saturn's not making an aspect with the moon. And so things are just going forward, which is nice because what you're doing is with all of this personal self-care and, introspection, you can find some ways to automate more what you're doing in this area so that you don't have to monitor it so closely. So that's the shift that I'm seeing, but it's also possible that you've already done some of that, and that's why this business is just seeming to chug along as it has usually, or as it does usually, and you're not having to do a lot of interaction with it during this 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, that would be like a paycheck. Because you're hidden, it's difficult to ask for a raise right now. So you might be working on a long-term project, but not ready to present it, or you're working at home and so nobody sees you. But there's something that does say that this is not the time to be asking for a raise. There will be times still this year where this energy will line up and you can do that, but this is not that time. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I really divide this into two categories. One is the highly leveraged, very time-sensitive, roll of the dice, very exotic investments. And those they're risky and they're kind of feel like an adventure. And then there's the other type, which is where you are doing a creative project, but you have to do it on spec. So you write the entire novel, then you put it up on Amazon and you see what kind of response you get. And so right now, Mars is making a trine to Saturn. So you're doing really great energy here. That means there are some opportunities for you to launch something or start something and have it go well. Now, I do want to say that this is an eclipse time, and so that you don't want to do this actually on the day of the eclipse. That's October 25th, because on the day of the eclipse, there's actually no energy. And that is because what's happening in the sky is that the moon is lining up exactly with the sun. And so from our perspective here on Earth, the moon looks so large, it blots out the energy of the sun. So something is blocked. And that means that there is not the energy to go and do some sort of business launch or to launch your album or things like that. So look at this as a 2-week period where something could be begun, but don't do it exactly on the eclipse. Okay, Capricorn, you guys are doing this eclipse along with Venus in your house of friendships, community, and the future. And so this is where something could change dramatically in your life. And one of those things that you can do is start by looking at your plans for the future. And are you set up with very specific goals? Are you looking at going towards a destination, or do you have a destination but you have no steps to get there? And so looking at what your future plans are and how you are doing it, I think that's what this eclipse is. And sorry, I was thinking about, there's a book out there called the 12-week year. And I actually haven't read the book, but I saw a lot of videos on it of people using the system. And I thought it was very interesting. It is this idea that you take something that might take a year, but you compact it down to 3 months. And so that's a kind of thing here where you are putting very specific milestones or tasks into your calendar and getting it done in a very focused manner. But because this eclipse is also hitting this area of community and friendships, there could be some big change in a friendship that you have, or some change that's happening in your community that is causing you to rethink things. Now, this is a Scorpio eclipse, so therefore we're looking at editing, where something could be removed to make things better. So you might be looking at where a friend's moving away, or maybe a friend, the energy's just shifted and you can't be so close with that person anymore for various reasons. It's also possible that you are leaving a group or organization that you've always belonged to, but now that group's taken a different direction, or that you need to get more involved in a community group so that you can hone them in a direction so that they're not all over the place. So this is to be mindful about your interactions with your community. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, even though Venus is not making an aspect to Saturn, you're doing the eclipse in the opposing house, the 11th house. And so oftentimes astrology works on an axis. And that means that if something happens in the 11th house, it affects the 5th house. So something that happens in friendships does affect love relationships. And so I'm thinking that there could be somebody that you meet that suddenly wants to be a love relationship, but because you're not doing an aspect, maybe you're not really getting together over this 2-week period, or it's so out of the box that you are still kind of processing this information for 2 weeks. And so you're not really moving forward on this quite yet. When it comes to existing love relationships, Moon's not making an aspect with Saturn. And so your focus seems to be more on the community and not so much at home where you are connecting with your partner. So it is possible that the two of you are going out into the community and doing something together. That would be great. But it is also possible that you're just very busy going your separate ways. And so your relationship is not getting any worse, but it's not getting any better. That's okay. Oftentimes that's the way relationships work, that for long periods of time, they just are, status quo. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from the Uranus as well as that co-ruler Saturn. And now that no partile square that we've been talking about for the last few videos, that is done. And so what that means is whatever needed to be dismantled, that's it. It is in pieces now. And now you're going to take the pieces and rebuild. And so this could be that maybe there was a change in revenue stream or a change in how you do your finances in general, how you keep track of things or what you want to invest in. And now is the time to rebuild. And you're going to rebuild this in a stronger, better way. And so that's where the focus is right now, is that you are very much building something, but not necessarily taking something apart anymore. Now it's time to see what you have as resources go and what you could build from there. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, you're making about the same as usual, because Uranus is not making an aspect to the sun. So I'm seeing you as, moving forward on your investments. Maybe you've just done a buy and hold, or you're doing dollar cost averaging. And so you're just continuing your process. The same with your business. You're doing your usual marketing. Money's coming in, money is going out. And so it looks like this is not where your focus is. Okay, when it comes to money derived from career, it's an entirely different story, because you are doing the eclipse in that house. So your income through your job could be transformed. This means you have the opportunity, maybe over the 2-week period, but maybe over the entire eclipse period, which is about 6 months, to completely just jump up so high that you don't recognize that old salary that you had. So it could be some really big jump to a new position or a new company that causes your salary to be quite different. Now, eclipses are quite disruptive, so there may be that you have to lose a job to gain the much better job. So and I would say at this point, you probably know if this is going to happen. You probably feel it already. And so get your resume ready. pay attention to opportunities that coworkers are talking about or former supervisors are talking about. But what I see over the next 6 months for sure is you can make a big jump in your salary, and you may be able to secure this within 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I divide these into 2 categories. One is the roll of the dice, the gambling of something that's highly leveraged or very exotic, a very different type of investment. Or there is also the type where you do something for a long period of time on spec, where you're making a movie and then later you're releasing that movie, maybe to film festivals or maybe on YouTube even, to see if it generates what you're looking for, the results that you want. So you are not doing an aspect between Venus and Uranus. So this is more of a continuation of the energy. It's interesting because that eclipse, being in that house of community, may mean that you can gain something by talking to people in the community or putting what it is that you're doing out into the community. But still, because there's not an aspect happening, it's difficult to get the money that's out in the world into your bank account. So this may not be the best time to launch. Okay, Aquarius, you guys are doing this eclipse with Venus up in your house of career. This is also reputation and social status. And so eclipses bring change. And so the first thing to do is, if you're not thinking about changing jobs, to really check with your company about its health, to see whether the company is doing well, whether they are going to start contracting, whether they are, secretly planning layoffs. And you can see that in the balance sheet or in the whispers of, the employees. In most cases, you as a spiritual person, you are aware of what the eclipse energy is going to do a couple of weeks before. You have an inkling of it. And so this is a time where you would not want to just sit around and wait for this to happen, but you want to be proactive because you could secure something else that is so substantially better. That is the purpose of an eclipse, to take things out of your life that are not working and put in things that are going to be amazing. So now this is also about your reputation, and so that could be that you want to make sure that what you're posting out into the world, that you know the source of it, that you are very aware that you're not, reposting something that maybe could shed a bad light on you. So just to be extra careful, especially around this eclipse time with what you're posting. This is also a possibility of a change of status. Now, a change of status could be anything from going from single to being in a relationship, or going from dating to marriage. It is also maybe going from being, just a fancy-free parent, fancy-free adult to a parent where you have a child or you get a puppy. This can be that you finally notice that the kids are out of the house and now you're an empty nester. So there can be a change of status that unfolds over months, but you really are feeling it over the next 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, Mercury's making an inconjunct to Uranus. So that's really kind of a roll of the dice sort of energy. And so that is to just go out with somebody that you don't really think is your type, and you may really hit it off, or where you might have said no to somebody and then you say yes and you find, oh my gosh, they're so much nicer than I thought. Now, I don't suggest the roll of the dice energy to just anyone, but you're Aquarius, so you like a little bit of adventure. And so this is definitely an energy that says there could be adventure here. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, the sun's not making an aspect to Uranus. And so you may be working on projects together. You may be working on, a business together, or home projects, or getting your kids launched, but you're not really working on the relationship. And that's okay. You don't need to work on the relationship every single time. But you do want to be quite mindful that you're probably going through changes in your life. They're probably going through changes in their lives. And so you want to be very focused on supporting each other. Okay, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Neptune as well as the Jupiter, which is going to move back into your house of money. So this means that you might have a lot of ideas for different ways of making money or how you want to change how you handle money, but these seem very ethereal right now. They're because the Jupiter's at 0 degrees and it's not yet close enough to that house that it just feels very abstract. And so that's the thing that could change. Right now, write down the abstract ideas, write down the things that you want to have happen. And then I think that over the next few weeks, what's going to happen is you will get some actual solid information on how to implement what it is you want to do. So I think this is more that your brain is open, lots of ideas are flooding in. Write those down or record them on your phone because you can use those later. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, Mercury is making an inconjunct to Neptune. So this is about going out and doing the harder things, the things that are really boring, the things that are just kind of arduous because that's what's going to bring you the profits. So that might mean reading the prospectuses or, sitting down with your broker to discuss long-term plans, looking at your business, seeing what you can streamline or what kind of adjustments that you can make, just even going through your website and refreshing some of the pictures and the copy. That sort of stuff is what's bringing you money over the next 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, the Jupiter is getting closer and closer to that conjunction to Neptune. So you are getting ready, I think, to look for either negotiating for a better salary where you are or finding a new job. So I think this is getting closer and closer. So continue to collect that information to support your case. That is, recognize when you've received, some good feedback from customers or, made your sales numbers or you were the star of a project. So make a note of those and write those down so you have all that at your fingertips when these two planets line up in the future. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I really divide this into two categories. One is the just very much roll of the dice, very risky. They're generally highly leveraged or they're very time sensitive, and it's really just gambling. The other type is where you're gambling on yourself, where you are saying that you want to do a creative project, which you do over many months or even years, and then you present it for payment. And that can be anything from doing your art portfolio and getting all of your designs together to getting ready to launch your YouTube channel, which you shouldn't launch with just one video. You should probably launch with 5 videos ready or 10 videos ready. So it's a lot of upfront work for then a payoff in the future. Now, that all said, Mercury is doing an inconjunct with Neptune. So that is, there is possibilities of making money in this area, but you have to go do the hard stuff. That is the things that you've been putting off. And these, it's not hard in the sense of difficulty, it's hard in the sense of annoyance. And so those little things that you say to yourself you don't want to do, those are the things that you either have to do or you have to find someone to do them for you because that's the thing that's tripping you up. And when you do that thing, when you get that done, then you make the profits. So that's what can be helpful. And by the way, with a Mercury in conjunct Neptune, this is not an ideal time to launch. That's too difficult in energy. You may want to just wait a little bit. This energy will line up better after this 2-week period. Okay, Pisces, you guys are doing this eclipse and Venus in your 9th house. This is about travel, higher education. It's about legal matters, but it is also about your beliefs. And beliefs are very important because you can have beliefs that really support you and help you go out into the world, or you can have limiting beliefs. And because it's Scorpio, it's asking you to edit this, to look at what is empowering you or what has power over you and be discerning about that. So you might feel that through your beliefs that the world is this very dangerous place, but you may not have a life that is currently in danger. And so because you are seeing that the world is a dangerous place, and it is, but it doesn't mean that that's happening in your neighborhood or in your home. And so you have to discern how that belief or how those thoughts are helping or hindering you from doing stuff. Now, of course, this is higher education, and if you're in school, this may be that you need to really focus on your studies right now and look at different ways of getting ready for tests so that you can, get through these much more easily. This also could be about legal matters, and this might be just something where you want to look at settling or really leaning in so that you can get your court case ready to go, where it's very solid, where you have the power so that you can win it. Eclipses bring change. And so that means that something in one of these areas at least is going to change in your life. And so whatever you direct that energy towards, then you have a little bit more control over it. So that's why I'm suggesting that you lean into some of these different things. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, the moon's not making an aspect with Neptune, and you're not really doing any energy in the house of relationships, in the house of romance. It's a very quiet time in this area. And that's okay, because meeting somebody on an eclipse can be so overwhelming and so intense that it can be this bright flame that burns out really quickly. So focus on other things. Focus on your beliefs about love relationships and how many people you think are out there for you. Or do you think that it's very difficult for you to find someone because you are so specific in what you want and you never leave the house? So shift those beliefs, and that will then, outside the 2-week period, give you an easier time of meeting someone. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, Mercury is making an inconjunct to Neptune. So this means that it is wise to go do some of the harder things, and that is where you can adjust for your partner, or where you are asking them to adjust, to be very specific and edit down what you're saying to them so that you only have them adjust the very specific things that benefit you the most. So don't ask them to do everything different. Ask them to do that one thing that really will make your life better. And then you look at them and say, what can I adjust in my life to make your life better? And that's how you can really work on this relationship. Otherwise, you might be irritating each other over the next 2 weeks. This may not be something that is, a big systemic problem in the relationship. This just could be that you're slightly irritated, they are too, and so you're bumping heads a little bit. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Mars, which is going through your house of real estate, land, home, and family. And so really focusing now and over the next few months on how you can secure investments through that is a good idea. But aside from that, this Mars is making a nice square to your sign ruler, and that is Neptune. And so you are going to have more ideas. They may come from family members. They may come when you're just sitting in the house and you want to write these down. You want to, store these for the future. This Mars is going to be going through this house and on and off, making this square to Neptune over, what is it going to be, like 6 months, 5.5 months? At least 4 months. And so this is a time to collect together the ideas, because then you can implement these later. So using some sort of system, whether that's a journal or some sort of online system, so that you can keep and, search these ideas later, can be very helpful. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, there's no aspect going on between Venus and Mars. So you're making about the same as usual. Now, Jupiter is about to leave your money house. And actually what this is going to do is it has a benefit, and, so here we go. So first of all, Jupiter represents luck, but it also can represent things being too easy. And so sometimes when things are too easy in the area of finances, you miss opportunities because it just seems so obvious, or you feel like it'll be there forever. And so something may be like stepping away, like you can't quite reach it as easily as Jupiter goes out of this house. And so what that could be is you suddenly get very interested in making more money. And so while Jupiter is outside the house, you might make more money than usual. So this is just the beginning of this, because with this chart, Jupiter is still in that house where you have a little bit more luck, but you might be a little complacent about your business or money from your investments. And so if you can pay attention now, you may find some hidden gems. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, you're doing great energy. Mars is making a trine to Saturn. You have the ability to make more money at your job by getting a raise, getting more hours, or switching jobs and negotiating for a higher salary. It's also possible that you are doing something with your education, because you're doing the eclipse up there in education, where you can actually apply it directly to, getting a raise, or telling them, like, I'm working on this certificate, or I've just received this certificate, and so therefore it's time to bump me up in salary. So you're doing very good energy in this area. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and I really divide this into two categories. One is the roll of the dice, gambling, the highly exotic, possibly leveraged, very time-sensitive investment. And the other is the investment that you make in yourself, where over a very long period of time, you're doing something creative, and then you hope to get paid for that in the future. So you're doing it on spec. And that can be anything from writing a business plan to, writing a sci-fi series. And so over a long period of time, you do all the work, and then later you get the paycheck. So you're doing Moon making I have to check. So Moon is making an out-of-sign trine to Mars. So an out-of-sign trine means that money can come from an unexpected source, but you do have to look for it. The trine means it is quite easy. So something may come to you as a little bit of a hint, and then you can just follow those breadcrumbs to something that brings you a bigger reward. And, that could be anything from somebody saying to you, oh, this guy's looking for screenplays, or this person's looking for a new graphic artist. And so through that very, tenuous connection, you present what you have, and then success happens. So, watch for those little random emails, or, little bits of tidbits that are financial tips, because something like that could lead to a real windfall over the next 2 weeks, or because this is eclipse energy unfold over a 6-month period. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe and stay tuned, because LaRue wants to say hi.